Alright, so I hope you guys were able to watch that quick little video about the functions of sugar. It'll mostly just summarize what we are about to talk about right now, and that is the functions of sugar in food. So first and most obvious is flavor. The primary use of sugar in food is sweetness. Now, some types of sugar might provide a more complex and robust flavor. So think your brown sugar, your turbinado, those are less refined versions of white sugar, and so they still have some other compounds in them that give it a little bit more flavor. Other things like honey, maple syrup, malt sugar, they all provide a unique flavor that you might want in your food. Another thing that sugar does, especially in baking, is it affects the texture a lot. So sugar has this quality, we say that it's hygroscopic, and that means that it attracts and retains water, and often that means that it holds water so that other things cannot use water. So gluten, which is the structural network of flour, gluten forms when it interacts with water. But because sugar is holding the water, it prevents gluten formation, which means that it ends up with a softer and more tender texture for your baked goods that have sugar in them. So, like a cake, the sugar is one of the things that's keeping it really tender and crumbly. Another thing that sugar does is it enhances the creaming ability of butter. Now remember from our fats chapter, creaming ability means that it can incorporate little bubbles of air into the batter, and this produces a fluffy texture in products like cakes. Now, butter can do this without sugar, but sugar makes it a lot more stable, and so butter's creaming ability is improved a lot by the addition of sugar. The next thing that sugar does, once again, because it retains water, it holds in the moisture and prevents your cake or your baked good from drying out. So sugar results in a moisture product. Another thing, not so related to baking, but it does affect the crystallization of ice in ice cream, and that results in a creamier texture. Finally, in yeast doughs, your yeast is a tiny microorganism sort of thing, and it needs fuel to survive, just like any other organism. So the sugar in yeast dough provides food for the yeast, which allows the yeast to form more gas bubbles. So often, your yeast doughs that have sugar in them are larger, they have more volume, and they're a little bit lighter because they have more air in them. And so that's how sugar affects the texture of your baked goods. Next, we're going to talk about color. Now, this one's a little unexpected, but sugar does affect the color of your baked good. So sugar reacts when heated, either by itself or with protein, and it turns into a golden brown color. And this is because of a chemical reaction. There are two different chemical reactions that might be taking place. One is called Maillard browning, and the other is caramelization. You don't have to remember the names of those chemical reactions, but do remember that sugar, when it's heated, will react and turn a golden brown color. Now, some sugars are better than others for browning because of their chemical structure. Table sugar is not actually very good at browning, but lactose, on the other hand, the sugar in milk, is good at browning. And so in pancakes, if you don't add milk, your pancakes might not actually turn as brown. And, there are other factors that go into it, like the fat might contribute to browning, but you generally will notice if you put milk in your pancakes, they will turn into that nice, pretty golden brown color. So like I said, not all sugars are equal as far as browning goes. Some sugars that are good for browning are agave nectar, corn syrup, and honey. The final function we're going to talk about for sugar is shelf life. So sugar actually prolongs shelf life, and this, once again, is because of its hygroscopic quality, because it holds in the water and prevents bacteria from taking that water to grow. Bacteria need water to grow, but with a lot of sugar in your product, there's not a lot of water available, and so bacteria have a slower growth in products with sugar in them. So the most common uses of sugar for shelf life are in canned fruits, jams, and jellies. Those have a lot of sugar in them, and so they take a really long time to go bad. But it also can help your baked goods to have a longer shelf life just by preventing, molds or bacteria from growing. So yeah, sugar is actually good for shelf life. So that's all we're going to talk about as far as function goes, but you have some videos coming up and one more lecture that will talk about the different types of sugar as well as low-calorie sweeteners that we use in food.